The wind from the ocean hit the diner door hard.
Oh my God,
A man
is
walked
that
in
really
right behind
you?
it. He looked
Mom.
like he had been walking for miles, and like he was angry about it. His coat was too
I
big
just
for
wanted
him.
to say
It was an old,
thank you for
rust-colored
being
coat.
so kind.
His boots left wet marks on
It
the
really
floor.
means a lot.
Everyone at the counter turned to look at him. Then they looked away and went back to their coffee. "Give me whatever is fastest," he said. It wasn't really a greeting. It was more like he was throwing the words down on the counter. From the kitchen, a woman's voice answered before she even came out. "Sit anywhere dry, honey. I'll bring you something hot." She walked out, wiping her hands on her apron. The first thing anyone noticed about Marion Doyle was the way she walked. Her left leg didn't bend right. Every few steps, her body leaned to one side like a boat rocking in the water. She was 63 years old. She had run the Cannon Bend Diner alone for almost 30 years. In all that time, she had never once turned away a hungry man. She had no idea that the stranger in the torn coat was the reason a big business magazine had written a story about him 8 months ago. She didn't know his name was Adrian Cole, and that he ran
Oh
a
my
huge
God,
company
is
called
that
Meridian
really
Systems.
you?
Mom,
She didn't know he had landed in Portland 11 hours earlier in his own private plane.
I just wanted to say
She didn't know he had spent $300
being
at a
so
thrift
kind.
shop just so he could look like
it
nobody
really
at all.
means a lot.
What she did notice was small. The way he sat favoring one side like something hurt. The way his eyes moved fast around the room, checking every door. She had seen that kind of stillness before, in men who had slept in places that weren't safe. Her face didn't change. She just poured his coffee a little fuller than she needed to. 3 days later, that stillness would break wide open, and neither of them would ever see the world the same way again. 12 hours before that, Adrian Cole had been standing by the huge windows of his penthouse in downtown Portland, 40 floors up, watching the city lights blur in the rain on the glass. He was 36 years old. He had built a company from nothing but a laptop and an anger he couldn't fully explain. That company now had 4,000 employees. People called him a genius. He still hadn't unpacked. 3 boxes sat by his bedroom door, still taped shut, 6 weeks after he moved
my
from San
God,
Francisco.
is that really
He knew
you?
exactly what was
Mom.
inside the 3rd box. That was why he hadn't opened it. He walked over, knelt
I just
down,
wanted
and
to
cut the
say
tape with his house key.
Thank you for being
Under
so
a winter
kind.
coat he never wore, there was
It
a
really
small
means a
wooden
lot.
box. The paint on its corners had worn pale from being picked up and put down again and again for over 30 years. He had carried it through 4 different homes, 2 countries, and 1 divorce he never talked about. He had never been able to open it for good, and he had never been able to throw it away either. This time, he opened it. Inside was half of a small wooden bird. It looked like it had once been a swallow, though age had worn the carving so smooth it could have been almost any bird. The break where it had been split from its other half was old and smooth from years of touching. Next to it lay a thin hospital bracelet, its color faded to weak tea. The ink on it had almost disappeared, but 2 words were still just barely readable. Marion Doyle, 26. He had read those words maybe 1,000 times in his life. They had
Oh
never
my
once
God,
turned
is
into
that
a real
really
face.
You?
Mom,
He knew the story the way you know an old scar. Someone else had told it to him,
I just wanted
and
to
it had
say
worn smooth from
thank you
being
for being
repeated
so
so many
kind.
times.
it really
34
means a
years
lot.
ago, on a freezing March morning, a priest named Father Whitcomb found a laundry basket on the church steps. Inside was a baby, only 2 days old. His lips blue from the cold, crying weakly. There was no note, just a bracelet on the baby's wrist, and half of a small wooden bird pinned inside the blanket. The other half was nowhere to be found. The nuns at the nearby boys' home took him in. They named him Adrian, after no one in particular, and Cole, after the coal delivery truck parked outside the church that morning. He grew up in a dorm room with 14 other boys nobody wanted. From a very young age, he understood one simple fact. Somewhere out there was a woman named Marion Doyle who had wrapped him in a shirt, broken a wooden bird in half, and left him on cold stone steps. His whole life had been built around that one fact, like a fist closed tight around it.
Oh my God,
He never went to
is
summer
that
camp.
really
He never
you?
owned a bicycle.
Mom.
He read library books under his blanket with a flashlight after lights out. He skipped
just
2
wanted to
grades in
say
school and won a full
thank you for
scholarship
being
to
so
college at
kind.
16. Every
It
good
really means a
grade,
lot.
every award, every sleepless night studying had the same quiet engine underneath it. I will become someone so big that if you ever hear my name, you will know exactly what you gave away. He left for California the day after he graduated college. He didn't look back for 14 years. The knock on his penthouse door came at 9 that night. Priya Anand walked in holding a thin folder. She had been his right hand for 6 years, the only person who could walk into his office unannounced and not lose her job for it. "You asked me to find her," she said without any greeting. "I found her." Adrian didn't turn from the window. "Where?" "The coast of Washington, a small town called Cannon Bend, past Astoria. She runs a diner, has for almost 30 years. Priya paused, which wasn't like her. "Adrian, she's not what you were picturing."
Oh
He turned
my
around.
God, is that really
What was I
you?
picturing?
Mom.
Money, a second family, a nice house she traded you for.
I just wanted
Priya
to
set the
say
folder down but didn't
thank
open
you for
it
being
yet.
so kind.
It's not that. She
It
lives
really
alone
means a
above the
lot.
diner. No husband on record, no other kids. The business barely makes enough to pay the bills. She's had the same old truck for 20 years. Something in Adrian's chest, something that had been clenched tight for 34 years, did not relax. If anything, it pulled tighter, confused by something it didn't know how to hold. "Show me." The first photo was of a woman standing in a doorway, thin, gray hair. One hand braced on the doorframe like she needed the support. Even in a still picture, you could tell she favored one leg. Her face was lined not just from age, but from years of hard physical work, and something else underneath that. Something patient, worn smooth like a stone in a river. Adrian stared at the photo for a long time. He had spent 34 years building a woman in his mind. Someone hard enough to leave a baby on stone steps in the cold and never look back. He needed her to be that woman.
Oh my God, is that
It was the
really
only
you?
way his whole childhood
Mom.
made sense to him. The woman in the photo did not look like someone who had gotten away
I
with
just
anything.
wanted to say
"I want to see
thank
her,"
you for being
he
so
said,
kind.
"myself, before
It really
anything
means a
else
lot.
happens. That's easy to set up. I can have you there by... not like this." He waved a hand at himself. "The suit, the watch, worth more than most people's cars. If I show up as Adrian Cole, she'll perform for me. Everyone performs for money. I need to see who she really is, when there's nothing in it for her." Priya looked at him for a long moment, the way she did when deciding whether to argue or just start making calls. She chose the calls. 2 days later, a car dropped a man in cheap second-hand clothes at a crossroads 4 miles from Cannon Bend and drove away. Adrian Cole walked the rest of the way into town on foot in the rain, carrying nothing but a bad haircut, a stranger's coat, and half of a wooden bird zipped into a pocket close to his chest. He hadn't planned for what happened
oh my
next.
God, is
The
that
plate of
really
food.
you?
He had expected. He wasn't even sure what he'd expected. Maybe a cold shoulder
I
for a
just
man
wanted
who
to
couldn't
say
pay. Maybe
you
a
for being so
sandwich
kind.
made with the kind of stingy kindness
means
people
a
show
lot.
when they want you to leave quickly. What came out of the kitchen instead was pot roast, mashed potatoes made with real butter, green beans that had clearly been picked fresh, not poured from a can, and a thick slice of cornbread, all arranged with a care that had nothing to do with what she thought he could pay. "Eat," Marion said, setting the plate down. "You look like you haven't in a while." He ate fast, almost angrily, like he was trying to prove her wrong about needing it. Then the first bite of cornbread hit his tongue, and something inside him, something he had spent 30 years building walls around, cracked, just a little. This is what it would have tasted like. Some quiet part of his brain said, "This is the thing you never got." He set the fork down harder than he meant to. "You don't have to eat it all at once," Marion said.
I just
though she
wanted
had
to
misread
say
him completely,
thank you for
or maybe
being so
she hadn't
kind.
misread him at all.
It really
She
means a
refilled his
lot.
water glass without being asked. Kitchen's not going anywhere. He finished the whole plate anyway, out of something close to spite. And when she came to clear it away, he said, flat and testing, "I don't have any money for this." He watched her face closely. He had built an entire idea about how the world worked on moments just like this one, the moment people showed you who they really were. Marion laughed, short and real, not unkind at all. "Didn't ask you for any. There's a storage room out back, but it's dry and it's got a cot in it. Stay a night or two while you figure out where you're headed. That's fine by me." She said it the way you'd offer someone a second cup of coffee, like it cost her nothing at all. But Adrian, a man who understood exactly what things cost, could see clearly that it cost her a great deal. This woman had almost
Oh my God,
nothing,
is that really
and she was
you?
giving a total stranger
Mom.
a share of it without blinking. He didn't understand her. And
I
worse,
just wanted to say
much worse, for a
thank you for
man who
being
had
so
spent his
kind.
whole adult life sure he could
really
read
means a
anyone
lot.
in 30 seconds. He found that he wanted to. That night, lying on the cot in a room that smelled like cedar and old rain, Adrian took the wooden bird out of his coat and turned it over in the dark. Through the thin wall, he heard something he wouldn't understand the meaning of for 2 more days. The sound, very faint, of a woman crying alone, trying hard not to be heard. Marion didn't ask why the stranger stayed a second night or a third. She wasn't the kind of woman who made people explain themselves before she fed them. But she noticed things. She noticed how he watched her hands while she cooked, like he was trying to remember something. She noticed he never once complained about the cot or the cold or the smell of cedar that filled that little storage room. And she noticed, though she said nothing about it, that some nights after closing, she caught him standing
Oh my
very
God,
still
is
in the
that
kitchen
really
doorway,
you?
looking at her
Mom.
the way you look at a photograph you're not sure is real. She didn't know his
I
name.
just wanted to say
He hadn't given one.
thank
And
you for
something
being
in
so
her,
kind.
old habit or maybe just
It really
kindness,
means a lot.
told her not to ask. She just called him Han and left it at that. On the 4th morning, a black car with government plates pulled into the gravel lot before the diner had even opened. A man in a gray suit stepped out, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. Marion's whole body changed when she saw it. Adrian, watching from the storage room window, saw her shoulders go stiff. He saw her grab the door frame, the exact same way she had in the photo Priya had shown him 3 days before, like she needed something solid to hold on to. "Mrs. Doyle." The man didn't wait to be asked in. "Warren Doyle sends his regards. He'd like an answer by Friday." "Tell Warren," Marion said, her voice suddenly flat and careful, "that my answer hasn't changed since the last 4 times he sent someone up here to ask. This is just a formality now, ma'am. The county already
Oh my
approved the marina
God,
project.
Is that really you?
Your lease on this land
Mom.
ran out 11 years ago. You've only been here this long because of his goodwill, and
I
that
just wanted
goodwill
to
has
say
limits."
Thank you
He
for
held
being
out an
so
envelope.
kind.
Marion didn't
It
take
really
it.
means a lot.
$50,000. That includes help moving. That's more than fair for a building that should have been torn down a decade ago. "This isn't just a building," Marion said. "This is the only thing my husband ever left me." The man in the suit smiled the kind of smile people wear when they've heard sad stories before and stopped caring years ago. "Feelings don't hold up in land court, Mrs. Doyle. Friday." He got back in the car and drove off, gravel flying under the tires. Marion stood in the lot for a long moment before she came back inside. When she did, her hands were shaking just a little as she tied her apron back on. She said nothing about what had just happened. She just went back to cutting onions, like the last 5 minutes never took place. Adrian had heard every word of it. He went back to his room and sat on the edge of the cot with his phone in his hand for a long time before he made the call. "Priya, I need everything on a man
my
named Warren
God,
Doyle.
Is that really
Property
you?
records, business records,
Mom.
anything with his name on it, going back 30 years. and find out what happened to Marion Doyle's husband. His name, how he died, all of it. Tonight.
It really means a lot.
You said Doyle was her last name, Priya said carefully. Are you telling me the man trying to take her land shares it? Adrian looked at the wall between his room and hers, the wall he'd heard her crying through 3 nights in a row. Yeah, he said. I think I am. By midnight, Priya called back. What she told him rearranged everything he thought he knew about his own life. Marion's husband, it turned out, was named Elias Doyle. He was a boat builder who made small wooden fishing boats by hand in a workshop half a mile up the coast, back when Cannon Bend still had a working harbor. Elias had died in a fire at that workshop 34 years ago, the very same week his son was born. The official report called it faulty wiring. But buried in an old county file, next to a wrongful death lawsuit that had quietly gone nowhere, was a name Adrian didn't expect: Warren Doyle, Elias's older brother. Warren had owned half the workshop.
Really you?
6 weeks after the fire, he sold his share of the land to a small company that, over the next 20 years and several name changes, became the very same development company now trying to push Marion off her diner. There's more, Priya said. The lawsuit claimed the fire wasn't an accident. It claimed Warren had changed the insurance policy on the workshop 2 months before the fire, making himself the only person who'd get paid if something happened to it. The case was dropped when the person suing, Marion, couldn't afford to keep fighting. She had just given birth. She was still recovering from a fall that hurt her leg badly. And Adrian. Priya paused. There's a hospital record, a birth certificate. A baby boy, no name filed, born to Marion and Elias Doyle, 34 years ago this March. It was never finished. There's a note in the hospital file. Baby released into the custody of the father's brother pending family arrangement. 2 weeks later, there's a police report. Marion reported the baby missing. Warren told the police she had given the baby up on her own and left town rather than answer questions.
Oh my
Adrian
God,
sat very still in the dark
you?
room, holding half a wooden bird so tightly it left a mark on his palm. She hadn't left him on those church steps herself. Someone had taken him away from her. And it was the very same man now trying to take the last thing she had left. He didn't sleep that night. Sometime past 2 in the morning, through the thin wall, he heard it again. The sound he now finally understood. Not a woman crying over a baby she had abandoned. A mother, 34 years later, still grieving a son she believed she had lost twice, once to a fire that took her husband, and once to a brother-in-law who made sure she never got the chance to keep him. Adrian lay in the dark with his hand pressed over the mark on his own chest. For the first time in 34 years, the anger he had carried his whole life didn't know where to point itself anymore. Because the woman on the other side of that wall wasn't who he had spent his life believing she was. She was the one who had lost more than he had. The next morning, Adrian woke up different. Something in him had shifted overnight, like a key turning in a lock that had been stuck for 34 years. He still didn't tell Marion who he was.
I just wanted to say,
but he started watching her work with new eyes. Every time she favored her bad leg. Every time she gave a customer a free refill she couldn't afford to give. Every time she remembered exactly how someone liked their eggs. He saw it differently now. Not as strange kindness from a stranger, as something closer to home than he had ever let himself imagine. That afternoon, during the slow hour between lunch and dinner, Marion sat down across from him with 2 cups of coffee and didn't say anything for a while. She just watched the rain move across the parking lot. "You've been here 5 days now," she finally said. "Longest anybody's stayed in that storage room since my nephew came through years back." She turned her coffee cup slowly on the table. "You don't have to tell me your story, but I want you to know whatever it is, you're not the first person to walk through that door carrying something heavy." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. The words almost came out right then. "I know your husband's name.
Means a lot.
I know what happened to your leg. I know what Warren Doyle did, but he held them back. He wasn't ready. Not until he had something solid enough that nobody could argue with it. Not until Warren Doyle had nowhere left to run. "Thank you," he said instead. "For the room. For everything." Marion just nodded and got up to check on a pot on the stove, and the moment passed. That night, Adrian called Priya again. "I need a lawyer," he said. "A good one. Someone who handles wrongful death and fraud cases. And I need everything Warren Doyle owns mapped out. Every company, every bank account, every piece of land tied to his name, going back to before the fire." "On it," Priya said. "Adrian, are you going to tell her who you are?" "Not yet." He looked at the wall again, the one between his room and Marion's.
Oh my God,
"I need Warren gone first.
Really you?
If I tell her now and it doesn't work, and he takes this place anyway, I'll have given her hope and then taken it away again. I won't do that to her." Over the next 2 days, Adrian split himself into two people. By day, he was still the quiet stranger in the second-hand coat, helping Marion carry crates, fixing a leak under the sink, sitting at the counter while she worked. By night, in the storage room, he opened his laptop and became someone else entirely. The man who had built an empire, now aiming every bit of that skill at one single target. What he found was worse than he expected. Warren Doyle had spent decades building a small fortune out of quiet, careful dishonesty. He had underpaid workers on old construction jobs and covered it up with false paperwork. He had bribed a county inspector years back to approve a building that should have failed safety checks. And buried deep in old bank records that Priya's team dug up, there was a wire transfer made 6 weeks after the workshop fire that killed Elias Doyle, a payment from the insurance company straight into Warren's personal account. Not the business account, his personal one. He had rewritten the insurance policy in his own name 2 months before the fire.
Thank you for being so kind.
He had gotten the payout while his brother's widow was still in the hospital. Adrian sat with that fact for a long time before he could move again. On the 6th night, he heard footsteps outside the storage room. Marion was standing in the doorway holding a small tin box, the kind people use for sewing needles or old buttons. She looked tired in a way that went past just being physically worn out. "Can't sleep," she said. "Mind if I sit a minute? Kitchen's warmer than my own room, believe it or not." Adrian moved over on the cot without a word, and Marion sat down beside him, setting the tin box on her knees. She opened it. Inside were a few old photographs, yellowed at the edges, and something small wrapped in a handkerchief. "I don't usually show anybody this," she said quietly. "But you've been kind to me, and I don't rightly know why, and it feels like something I need to say out loud to somebody before it eats me alive." She unfolded the handkerchief.
Oh my God, is that
Inside
really
was half
you?
of a small wooden
Mom.
bird. Adrian's whole body went still. "My husband carved these," Marion said, running her thumb over the smooth wood. "One bird cut clean in half. He gave one half to our son the day he was born. Said someday, if they were ever apart, the two halves would find their way back together." I thought it was a foolish, romantic thing to say at the time. Her voice cracked slightly. I never got the chance to tell him he was right to believe it because 2 days later, I lost him. And not long after that, I lost the baby too. She looked up at Adrian, her eyes wet but steady. "His brother told everyone I gave the child away, that I ran off rather than raise him. I never did either of those things. I would have crawled through fire for that boy. But nobody in this town ever believed a grieving, broke, crippled young widow over Warren Doyle's word. So I stopped telling the story. I just kept this instead." She closed her hand gently around the little wooden bird. "Kept it 34 years, hoping that somewhere out there the other half still existed.
Is that really you?
Foolish, I know."
Mom.
Adrian could not speak. His hand had gone, almost without him deciding it, to the inside pocket of his coat, where the other half of that same bird had lived against his chest for 34 years. He was quiet a moment too long, and Marion, misreading his silence for pity, gave a small, tired laugh and started wrapping the bird back up. "Don't mind me," she said. "Old woman talking nonsense in the middle of the night. You should sleep. Marion." His voice came out rougher than he meant it to. "Wait." She looked at him, surprised. It was the first time he had said her name. Slowly, with hands that were not steady at all, Adrian reached into his coat and pulled out the wooden box he had carried through 4 homes and 2 countries and 1 divorce. He opened it. He took out the other half of the bird and set it on the cot between them, next to hers. The break lined up perfectly. Marion made a sound that wasn't quite a word. She looked at the 2 halves, then at Adrian's face, really looked at it for the first time. Not at the stranger, but at the shape of the jaw, the set of the eyes. And something in her seemed to recognize what her mind hadn't caught up to yet.
I just wanted to say,
"Who are
thank
you?"
you for being so kind.
She whispered. It wasn't really a question anymore. It was closer to a plea. Adrian reached up and pulled open the top button of his shirt, revealing a small, faint mark near his collarbone, shaped like a crescent moon. The kind of birthmark that shows up in the same family for generations. "Elias had one just like it," Marion breathed. "On his shoulder. I used to trace it with my finger when he slept." Her hands were shaking now, hovering near his face like she was afraid to touch him and find out it wasn't true. "It can't be. They told me, Warren told me you were—" "I'm not," Adrian said, and his own voice broke on the second word. "I'm right here. I've been right here for 6 days, eating your cooking, sleeping under your roof, and I didn't know how to say it. I'm sorry it took me this long." Marion made a sound that came from somewhere far deeper than tears.
Oh my
And she reached
God,
for
is
him
that
the way a
really
person
you?
reaches for something they
Mom.
thought the ocean had taken forever. Adrian let her pull him in,
I just
and for a
wanted to
long
say,
moment, neither of them
thank you
said
for being
anything
so
at all.
kind.
34 years of
It really
silence
means a
finally
lot.
breaking apart in that small storage room that smelled like cedar and old rain, and now like something that had finally come home. "I have to tell you what Warren did," Adrian said quietly, once the shaking had eased a little, once he could speak again. "All of it. And then I need your help finishing this, not for revenge, for the truth." Marion held the 2 halves of the bird together in her open palm, fitted perfectly, whole for the first time in 34 years. "Then let's finish it," she said. They had 2 days before Warren's deadline. Adrian didn't sleep much that night, and neither did Marion, but for the first time in either of their memories, the sleeplessness didn't feel like grief. It felt like getting ready for something. In the morning, Adrian called
God,
Priya
is that
from the
really
diner's back
you?
step, coffee
Mom.
going cold in his hand, and told her everything. The wooden bird,
I just
the
wanted to
birthmark,
say,
34
thank you for
years,
being so kind.
finally making sense.
It really means a lot.
"Adrian," Priya said, and for once her calm, steady voice wavered. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just work fast. I want Warren Doyle to walk into that diner on Friday thinking he's about to win, and I want him to leave in handcuffs." "You have enough for that. The insurance fraud alone could put him away for years. The bribed inspector, the false wage records, it's all documented. I'll have the lawyer file with the district attorney today. But Adrian, once this moves, it moves fast. There's no taking it back." "Good," Adrian said. "I don't want to take it back." He hung up and turned around to find Marion standing in the kitchen doorway, watching him with an expression he was still learning how to read: pride, fear, and something like disbelief all at once. "You really are one of those big-shot businessmen,"
I just
she
wanted to
said.
say,
"The ones on the news."
Thank you for being so kind.
"I really am," Adrian said.
It really means a lot.
"I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I needed to see who you were without it. I needed to know the truth wasn't something you'd only show a man with money." Marion walked over and took his face in both hands, the way mothers do, like she was making up for 34 years of never getting the chance. "You could have told me on day 1. I'd have fed you just the same." "I know that now," Adrian said quietly. I didn't back then. Friday came in gray and windy, the same kind of weather that had been sitting over Cannon Bend for a week straight. The black car pulled into the gravel lot at exactly 10 in the morning, and this time it wasn't just the man in the gray suit. Warren Doyle himself stepped out of the back seat. He was 71 years old, silver-haired, dressed in a coat that cost more than Marion's diner made in a month. He walked with the easy confidence of a man who had never once, in 34 years, been made to answer for anything.
Is that really you?
Marion.
Mom.
He said her name like it tasted bad in his mouth. I trust you've come to your senses.
Thank you for being
I have,
so kind.
actually, Marion said.
It really
She was
means a
standing
lot.
very straight, straighter than Adrian had seen her stand all week, her bad leg holding steady beneath her. Come in. Sit down. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Warren's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but curiosity won out. He stepped inside, the man in the gray suit trailing behind him, and stopped short when he saw Adrian sitting at the counter, no longer in the ragged second-hand coat but in a plain dark suit that somehow made him look twice as dangerous. Warren, Adrian said, standing. We haven't met. My name is Adrian Cole. Something crossed Warren's face. Recognition. The slow kind that comes with dawning dread. He knew the name. Everyone who read a newspaper knew the name. I don't know what business Meridian Systems has with a diner on the coast, Warren said carefully, but this is a private family matter. You're right about one thing, Adrian said.
Oh my God,
It is a
really
family
you?
matter. He walked closer, and Warren, without quite meaning to, took a step back.
I just wanted to say
34 years ago,
Thank you
you
for
told a
being so
hospital
kind.
that a newborn baby was being
really
released
means a
into
lot.
your custody pending, quote, family arrangement. 2 weeks later, you told the police his mother had given him up and skipped town. You left that baby on the steps of a church in the middle of a March freeze and never once looked back. The color drained out of Warren's face. That baby's name is Adrian Cole, Adrian said. I'm your nephew, and I've spent every day since you handed me that name. Cole after the truck outside the church that morning, trying to become somebody big enough that when I finally found you, you couldn't hide from what you did. Warren's mouth opened, closed, opened again. This is absurd. This is a con. Marion, whatever he's paying you. Nobody's paying anybody, Marion said, her voice shaking with something that was no longer just grief. I have half of a wooden bird that's carried in my pocket for 34 years, Warren, and he has the other half. You want to explain to me how a stranger got the other half of my dead husband's carving if your story's the true one?
Is that really you?
Warren said
Mom.
nothing. His eyes went to the door. Sit down, Adrian
I
said,
just wanted to
and
say
something in his voice made it
thank
clear
you for
it
being
wasn't
so
a request.
kind.
You're going to
It
want
really
to hear the
means a
rest
lot.
before the district attorney's office gets here, because right now they're on their way with a warrant, and you have exactly a few minutes to decide whether you'd rather explain yourself to me first or to them. Warren sat. 2 months before the fire that killed my father, Adrian said, you changed the insurance policy on that workshop, naming yourself the only person who'd collect if something happened to it. 6 weeks after he died, the money went straight into your personal account. Not the business account, not anything shared with your brother's widow. Just yours. The official report called the fire an electrical fault, but there was a wrongful death case filed against you at the time, and it named the same thing I'm about to name now. That you had the wiring tampered with, and that you made sure the case never saw a courtroom by making sure the woman filing it had nowhere left to turn. No money, no lawyer, no baby to fight for, because you'd already made that disappear too.
Oh my God, is
The
that
diner was
really
completely
you?
silent except for the
Mom.
wind outside. I didn't, Warren started and then stopped,
I just wanted
because
to
the
say
lie had nowhere left to
thank
go.
you for being so kind.
34 years of careful silence
It
had
really
just
means a
run out
lot.
of road. Outside, gravel crunched under tires. 2 sedans pulled into the lot, and men in plain clothes stepped out, one of them holding a folder, another speaking quietly into a radio. Adrian watched his uncle's face as it happened. The moment a man who had spent his whole life above consequences finally understood he wasn't anymore. You're not going to hurt him, are you? Marion said quietly, once the investigators had led Warren out to the car, once the questions had started and the folder full of 34 years of evidence had changed hands. I don't want revenge, Adrian. I just wanted the truth to finally exist somewhere outside my own head. It's not revenge, Adrian said, watching the car pull away down the gravel road. It's just what happens when the truth finally has somewhere to go. Marion reached for his hand, and this time neither of them let go. That evening, after the cars were gone and the diner had closed for the day, mother and son sat together at the same small table where he'd eaten his first plate of pot roast 6 days earlier.
I just wanted to say,
between them on the table
thank
sat
you
the
for
two
being so
halves of
kind.
a small wooden bird,
It really
finally
means a lot.
whole. Tell me about your life, Marion said. All of it. I have 34 years to catch up on, and I don't want to miss a single day of it. So Adrian did, and outside the wind off the Pacific kept blowing, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't sound angry at all.